The summit is aspirational and is built on the demand that action must be taken to end this violence. This evening's event and the screening of Cree filmmaker Tasha Hubbard's documentary, Nipawista Masuin, We Will Stand Up, for which you have all been sent a free link in your registration, grounds this summit and the work in the experiences of families who have lost loved ones to this violence. A key message of this summit is that all stand together against this violence and in demand for action to stop it. The organizers wish to acknowledge that the film conveys very, very sensitive issues and topics, and it may be difficult for some people to watch. We especially recognize that this may be the case more for Indigenous people than non-Indigenous people. And so we encourage you all to have supports at hand in case you need them during or after watching the film. And if you've watched the film in advance of today's session, we hope that again you will take the time to acknowledge if you need support and to reach out to those who may be able to assist you if you're feeling triggered or having an emotional response that you may need support with. With that, I will briefly describe today's panel, which focuses on family calls for justice. We will hear from family members about their experiences and their perspectives on the need for justice and systemic change. First, we will hear from Jade Brown-Tootoosis with Eleanore Sunchild and Dr. Beverly Jacobs. We will then hear from Martha Martin with Dr. Judith Sayers. And finally, we will hear from Jessica Perley with Alisa Lombard. The session will conclude with Terry Lynn Williams Davidson performing a Haida song of love and honor. With that, I will now turn it over to Dr. Beverly Jacobs. Thank you.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for the invitation to introduce the panel, or sorry, Jade and Eleanore. I'm honored. I'm just to introduce myself. I'm Mohawk. You're going to hear from me tomorrow. So I'm just been honored to introduce both Jade and Eleanore. I'm their fangirl. I've been touring around with them a few times, and I'm very honored for all of the work that they're doing. And Jade, who is Colten's sister, for those who have watched the video, know her and know what she has had to do to bring attention to the horrific violence that has occurred to her brother. And Eleanore is Cree. Jade is Cree. They're both Cree. Eleanore is a lawyer for Jade's family. And again, I just want to thank you for both coming today. And so one of the questions that I have in being able to introduce both of you, and you're welcome to say a few words also about yourself. But one of the questions in acknowledging the violence that has occurred, and everything that you've been through, Jade, through the justice, through the criminal legal system. I don't want to call it a justice system, and I know you don't like calling it that either. In everything that you've been through in the last 4 years, what would you tell Canada? What would you tell a Minister of Justice? What would you tell the Minister of Public Safety? What do you want? What do you want out of this? What's required for your family to feel like you've had any sort of justice?
All right. Thank you. Thank you for that introduction, Beverly. I really appreciate your words. And I just want to express on behalf of my family, our appreciation to the organizers of this gathering for making space to screen Nito Samasuin, and for all those that have taken time to not only watch the film, but to gather with us today. That's definitely a very big question, and it changes a lot actually throughout this journey. You know, we're coming onto the 4th year memorial of my late brother and cousin Colten. So it's been it blows my mind at times that it's going to be 4 years, because it feels like just yesterday, just last week we were in court. Like it's still so fresh constantly. So it's never easy doing talks like this. But if I was to speak to Canada and ministers in the seats that they hold, is that they need to step up and make actual meaningful change and listen to the Indigenous people across the country and the recommendations that are being made. Hearing the experiences that many families have had, and not dismissing them as a one-off, not blaming the victim. You know, like there's too many stories such as this. And even today, sitting on this panel with a couple of other families that have experienced the loss and went through the system, it's heartbreaking. It's hard to hear that another family has faced an injustice or has to go through this process, because it's not kind to our people. And even reflecting on that this colonial legal system that's in place is a colonial system. It was built on oppressive status. It was built to be racist and to treat the Indigenous people within their territory differently. And, you know, at the end of the day, if there was one thing I really would like to see changed, it's the dismantling of the Canadian legal system altogether, and reinstating and putting in place our own traditional systems, putting in place, you know, Nehiyaw Cree law and legal systems, putting in place Mohawk systems, Anishinaabe systems, all the systems to the territories to which governed before contact. And those systems were built on different values, not those based on oppression and racism, such as the Canadian one. So I think that, you know, as families, we continue to speak out and share our stories. The hope is that people are listening, and that people are waking up, and that they take action, that people take action today. Because as many say, silence is violence. And by not participating and speaking out, you're complacent with what's happening in this country and continues to happen to too many families. Eleanor, is there anything you'd like to add?
I would agree with what you said, Jade. There are too many families who have faced injustice to this day. Chantel Moore being the last, well, not the last, but one of the most recent cases that we've heard of the justice system mistreating an Indigenous person. And it's not the only example. There are many, and sadly there'll probably be more. But if I was to meet with the powers that be that are in place today, I would tell them this has to stop, because you made us promises after the verdict that you haven't kept. You promised that you would look at overhauling the justice system and to determine how to make it better. Well, it's not better when Indigenous people are being killed and the justice system, the legal system, isn't doing anything about it. And that's right from the RCMP, the initial contact with the Indigenous person, to the court. All of those players need, first of all, to be trained in some sort of Indigenous awareness, because they have none. Some do, but it's lacking a lot. And yes, we need our own systems. We need our own systems where our people will administer justice to ourselves. And we can talk about indigenizing the justice system How about first of all, calling people out on their racism, making sure that there's safe spaces for Indigenous victims, for Indigenous people, because right now it's not going in a good way. And so all the promises that were made to the family after the verdict, the only action that we've really seen is changes to how juries are selected, but the police services need an overhaul, and the justice system needs to be more accountable and look at themselves and check themselves for their systemic racism, because that's what it comes down to. And systemic racism goes all the way up to the powers that be. Mm-hmm. So that's what I would say to, if I had an opportunity to talk to the ministers again, that's what I would say. Where's your action? Because I haven't seen much.
Okay, thank you, Eleanor and Jade. I know that there's a lot of emotional and spiritual reactions to what has happened, and I think it's really important that the Canadian legal system, right from the way the criminal legal system starts, right from policing to the lawyers and the crown attorneys and the judges, and then in corrections, the whole system, like you said, needs to be overhauled, and actually I also think needs to be shifted, as you said, Jade, right into our own Indigenous legal systems, because we weren't given that opportunity. So thank you both for your comments and your powerful presentations.
Thank you all very much. Really appreciate your powerful words today. And hope that everyone listening knows how important it is that you're here to speak to this issue today. Eleanor, did you have anything else you wanted to add? Sorry, I see you're still there. My apologies.
No.
Okay,
thanks, everybody.
Jade?
There's one last thing I'd like to say, and my heart goes out to the other families that are on the panel today. My heart breaks for you guys, but I also see such strength in you being present here and continuing to speak out and share your story. And it's difficult, and I wish I could tell you that it gets easier, but it doesn't. But by telling your story and what you're going through, it instills hope that things could change, that things may change one day, where our people are safe, where our families are safe. And should any injustice occur to any of for any family members, that, that they have support and that things will change where they get justice one day. If I had any advice, and sometimes families do reach out and they ask, what do we do? The first thing I tell them is to get a lawyer. You need somebody who understands the system, the language, and can advocate for you and your family members and your loved one. And the other thing I would say to them, to any family members, is speak out, continue to speak out. When you're facing obstacles, when you're facing silence, when you're asking questions, don't be afraid to inform the public that you are encountering challenges with the system, because you are not alone. When we know what you're dealing with, the public, we are able to stand with you. I stand with you. Because you shouldn't feel intimidated or scared to ask questions and to expect answers. You should be able to ask questions. You shouldn't have to demand respect. You should be getting respect from the system. And at times that doesn't happen. And should you face challenges such as this, I'm encouraging you to inform the public so that we can stand with you and put pressures on the system and hold it accountable, because you deserve respect and your loved ones deserve respect and you deserve answers. So for the other families that are here and any other people that are participants that are watching who have family members they've lost or are going through the system, you know, like, my heart goes out to you. You're always in my prayers. And, you know, don't be afraid to ask for help. If there's something that you need, let the people know. And we stand with you. Your loved ones deserve justice. So thank you so much to Patricia and to the organizers for having us here today. And my strength goes out to the other family members as they share their stories. And I want to make sure there's enough space for them to be able to do that. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Jade. Thank you. At this time, we're going to go over to Dr. Judith Sayers. I'm just going to give her a moment to bring up her video.
Okay, there I am. Hello, everybody, and thank you for participating in a dialogue that's been going on for too long. I am a spokesperson for Martha Martin, and she was having a difficult day and just couldn't come on today. As you are aware, almost a month ago, her daughter was at home safely asleep, and police arrived at her door, allegedly on a wellness check. And she ended up being shot at the age of 26, with a 5-year-old daughter relying on her. We don't know what happened that night, and the family is looking for those answers. But what we do know is that it should never have happened. Never, 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 especially on a wellness check. Martha has been grieving strongly at the loss of her beautiful daughter, of a life that she will never be able to live. She wanted to go on to school and be an engineer. Can you imagine? Not that many women engineers in there, but that was her dream. Dreams that won't be lived because a police officer shot her. And then 8 days later, there's another shooting in New Brunswick of Rodney Levi. And from the moment this happened to Chantel Moore, I committed to help the family to find justice for Chantel, to help them find the answers that they need for the healing that they need to go through. I think over the years, we've heard all the stories of family that this happened to, and we're all aghast, we're all angry, we're all, and we try and support from however we can. But the problem that I see is that we make a lot of noise, but the government doesn't listen. They just don't listen. They don't make the changes. We heard Jade. We heard what she said. 4 years since Colten passed on. And that's too long. This has been happening to our people over and over and over again. So what does it take? What does it take for us to make those changes to the system? And, I was having these conversations with Ardith. What can we do? what are some options that we can tell the government to do now? And we decided to pull together all these great minds of all the organizers and inviting people to come and have that conversation. What are actions we can do now? And in particular with Chantel, it's, what can we do to change wellness checks? Because obviously this is not the only wellness check that's gone wrong, and we're seeing it more and more and more. Why are we putting power into the hands of police to do something that they're not qualified for? And right there is the answer. So Martha and I tried to get a meeting with the Prime Minister, and he said, meet with my Minister of Public Safety, Bill Blair, and with our health minister. And so he just fobbed us off. Had a conversation with Bill Blair over the phone and asked him to put in place a special task force to deal with wellness checks. Let's carve off a piece of the justice. Let's get together, a group of people, including the Martin family and the National Tribal Council, and let's do something. And he says, well, the answer is that we're amending the Police Act. We're working with the Assembly of First Nations, and we're going to amend the Police Act. I said, that's not good enough. Something has to be done now. We need to put in place, and it's just policy, it's procedures, it's training, it's things we can address now without having to go through the whole, and I agree it needs to be done. Overhauling the whole justice system, throwing it out, starting again. I agree with all of that. But in the interim, while we do that, while we have that big dialogue, what can we do in the meantime? So I was not very happy with the minister, and I suggested, why can't we put in place some trauma-informed teams of Indigenous people and other professionals? And he just, we don't have the money for that. So I'm taking that to mean that our Indigenous lives are not important enough. Again, I was very, very, very disappointed. And tomorrow morning there will be some. So when I speak tomorrow morning, I'll be able to share a bit more of what ended up happening, alternative to the Minister of Public Safety not wanting to do something. So it's discouraging. I asked to meet with Commissioner Brenda Lucky, and if you remember, she came out and said she didn't believe there's systemic racism, and then there was so much backlash, she had to change her mind. So right now we've got the Prime Minister, we got the Minister, Bill Blair, we have of the RCMP, all saying systemic racism exists. We've got them saying that. So we got to make them walk their talk. We have to make them make the changes. And that's what I'm hoping for. Justice for Chantel, justice for Colten, justice for Rodney, like all these people who have passed on. I'm hoping that we can make changes as soon as possible so that another Indigenous person does not die. Senseless shootings. And so what are those things? And so I'll talk a little bit more, and you've seen the 10 points as well that have come out. But to have Martha and her family affected in such a way, and you heard from Jade so far and others in the future here, people should not have to go through this. And I think that now is the time to be making those changes, adding on to the work that's already been done by other families, but to demand change today, to put that get that political support behind making those changes. We have the solutions. We have lots of recommendations. We have good ideas of Indigenous people, and it becomes complex because it's on reserve and it's off reserve living in the city. It's provincial or municipal police versus RCMP. But I don't think the solutions really differ if we've got some good ideas. So I don't want to talk too long, but I did, want to mention on behalf of the family that, it's devastating to lose a loved one in this way. it's devastating for a system that doesn't give you the answers, that we have to wait for investigators. And so, there's many aspects of things that we need to change. And waiting for amendments to the Police Act just doesn't do that. So really, Martha asked me to be the spokesperson with the media, and I've been working on that and trying to up the profile, because ironically, Chantel died a year after the Missing Murdered Indigenous Women report came out. Government didn't do anything to implement it. Look at all the recommendations out there, and we all know this. So, just wanted to put that context out there to one of the recent events that's happening to Indigenous people, and something that motivates me and drives me to push governments. And I think we have to push them. They're in their comfort zone. Okay, they've admitted there's systemic racism. How do we make that change? How do we make people value human lives? Because we get dehumanized all the time. Those are some of the questions and things I'd love to have us speak about over the next today and tomorrow. And just loving the idea of us being able to speak. It would be nice if we were all in one big room together and we could see everyone. But in this time, this is what we're going to do. And, from the very bottom of my heart, I thank, on behalf of Martha, all of you. Many of you came forward with words of encouragement. Twitter, Facebook, any of those social medias. Many of you contributed to the GoFundMe page. That kind of, my sister describes as wrapping your arms around the family. That is just powerful to the family. And I really want to thank you. So thank you for your time today, and really appreciate every one of you. Clayco.
Thank you so much, Dr. Sayers. I really appreciate your words. Thank you very much. We will now turn it over to Jessica Perley with Alisa Lombard.
Good evening, everyone, or afternoon, depending where you are. Can you hear me? Okay, good. I believe Jessica is on the line as well. I was asked to introduce her as legal counsel for Elsipogtog First Nation, and also for the Francis family in this matter. I won't go too much into detail with respect to this particular case, and Brady's mom does a wonderful job of explaining over and over what it is that has happened to her boy. So she's the mother of Brady Francis, who was a young Ilmu man or Mi'kmaq man who was the victim of a hit and run incident in February 2018. When Brady passed, the entire community of Elsipogtog and the Mi'kmaq Nation rallied around the family, and the slogan "Justice for Brady" was developed. I still have the sticker on my fridge. The perpetrator, the man responsible for Brady's death, a non-Indigenous man, was charged with failing to stop at the scene of an accident that caused a person's death, and he was acquitted in April of this year. So while Jessica and her family are obviously very disappointed with the verdict and the decision of the Crown not to appeal, they really do continue to seek justice for their son, for Brady's legacy, his memory, and other Indigenous families who have endured trauma, only to have it compounded by their experience with the Canadian justice system. And I think I would also mention that Jessica is an excellent esthetician, and she runs a very successful, wonderful business in Elsipogtog. And I'm sure she's well prepared to talk about her experience.
Hi, my name is Jessica Perley, and thank you for that introduction, Alisa. I guess I want to start off by reading a statement on behalf of late Mr. Rodney Levi, and from his family. So on behalf of the estate of the late, well, Brady's name is on here as well, so I'll read so on behalf of the estate of the late Mr. Brady Francis and the late Mr. Rodney Levi, with the support of the Elsipogtog First Nation and Medibanagia Mi'kmaq Nation, we acknowledge and appreciate the support and efforts demonstrated by the Indigenous Bar Association and participants of the National Indigenous Justice Summit. We know that as Indigenous lawyers on the front lines of injustice, racism, and discrimination, you understand why we cannot be present today. As the family of Rodney Levi, we are grateful to Brady Francis for attending the summit and stand with her unwavering and united. We have committed to work collaboratively and support one another to honor the memories of our loved ones and to advance systemic change in the legal and policing systems in New Brunswick and Canada-wide. It is important for us that you know that our loved ones leave behind devastated children, parents, siblings, nieces, nephews, cousins, and other relations. We all continue to learn more about what happened on the night of June 12, 2020, less than 1 month ago, when Rodney was shot and killed by an RCMP officer. Investigations are ongoing, and our lawyers are working on behalf to carry out the work that must be done to create long-lasting and sustainable change. Our communities have been impacted to an indescribable extent. The subhumanization we have always endured and unfortunately have come to normalize as First Nations peoples of the hands of Canadian institutions is intensely and painfully felt by our youth in particular, and translates to deep pain and frustration. Canada and New Brunswick must do better. They must do right by us. As the First Peoples of these lands, we demand that the principles forged in our treaties with the Crown be strictly upheld. Our ancestors did not agree that their descendants, us, would be treated with the adverse exceptionalism and violence we are living. They made agreements to ensure our safety, prosperity, and peace with newcomers. The treaties contain all of the instructions and principles needed to move forward in our relationship with peace and friendship, however elusive those are at the moment. The time for change is now. Our treaties are clear that our laws of revenge were set aside in exchange for protection by His Majesty's institutions. Stated in the Treaty of Mascarene 1725-1726, protection is the least appropriate term to describe our experience with the Crown in the past few centuries. We suffer because the Crown fails to uphold its obligations under the treaties, fails to respect our rights, despite the undeniable fact that we continue to uphold our obligations under the treaties, perhaps even too generously. Treaties are a part of the constitutional fabric of Canada. They are not guidelines. They are not optional. They are not to be substantively ignored if the Crown expects to continue to benefit from and even exploit the treaty rights granted to Crown subjects under the treaties. Mutuality is a key principle of the treaty relationship. Treaties do not address the well-being of a single treaty party. That would undermine the spirit and intent of treaties and the very agreements upon which Canada was founded. Treaties are more constitutionally significant than the provisions that establish the inner workings of state institutions. Actually, treaties are the yardstick against which Crown institutional efficacy, oh my goodness, conduct and integrity must be measured. As Indigenous peoples, we have experienced the opposite of this rightful reality. The time for change was long ago. There must be an Indigenous-led New Brunswick-specific inquiry into these senseless deaths. The Crown's involvement in the miscarriages of justice our families are experiencing require that the federal government have more than a symbolic involvement in the inquiry. It is Canadian institutions and their provincial counterparts that must answer to the egregious injustices arising from the preventable death of our loved ones and harm to our families and nations. The inquiry must have the power to compel evidence, witnesses, provide standing to the families to make submissions at all levels of the process, and provide adequate resources to ensure that the inquiry's work is fully capable of carrying out its mandate as assigned through the co-drafting of its terms of reference. We call on colonial leadership to cease the rhetoric that has perpetuated racism and discriminatory treatment. Impunity and inaction inevitably result in the status quo. It is the culture of colonial authorities that must change to release itself from the ill-gotten principles upon which it was founded. Those principles included the subjugation and murder of First Nations peoples at inceptions, and those legacies continue through various instruments still in place designed to achieve that genocidal end. Our patience is awaiting change is no more. Indigenous lives matter, and it's high time the Crown stand up to its promises under treaty, as well thinking human beings, to uphold our right to life, free from discrimination and racism. I'm almost halfway done. And that statement was on behalf of for Rodney Levi's family. And now I'm just gonna go right into what I would like to share from my family. And I guess I'll just start like, well, 2 years ago, February 24th, 2018, my son was killed in a hit-and-run accident. And it happened outside our community in a settlement called St. Charles. The person that was responsible for Brady's death, he was charged, and he was acquitted from those charges this year in April. And we're just we are devastated. Just the things that we went through. I guess we're questioning now the quality of work that the RCMP put into their investigation. Right from the beginning, we were told that during the investigation process that they were doing everything they could, that, you know, that they were bringing in like people or their investigators, top investigators, and doing this and doing that. And we were supposed to be like having updates and everything as the weeks were going on for this investigation. It came to a point where, you know, there was one point where people were gathering outside of this individual's yard, and we had asked my father-in-law to go and calm down the crowd, because, you know, they were out there. And that was one of the things that I felt that was asked of us throughout the whole time was, you know, could you maybe make a statement on Facebook, or can you do through social media to, I guess, calm people down? So we did that out of respect, because that's the kind of people we are. We're very respectful people, and we don't want people to be in trouble or anybody to be in harm's way. And that's, you know, that's just our nature. And so that's one of the things that was asked of us through that time. So one of the things that I noticed was we weren't really getting our questions answered. Like every time we were, so we had our meetings once a week to get updated through the RCMP. And they provided that on at our detachment here in Elsipogtog. And we had the family, we had people that were there in support, and they weren't very clear with what they were doing in their investigation. They gave us little tidbits of information, but nothing too, you know, too concrete, because of, I guess it was case sensitive, like they didn't want to jeopardize any of the stuff that they were finding. And so they just wanted to make sure, like, you know, they're reassuring us every step of the way. But deep in my heart, I'm thinking now, like, I question it. Were they being truthful? Were, you know, is this all like I go back and I revisit it, and I wondering, like, you know, with all the current events that are happening, like, I guess I don't know, and we probably how do we know if they're being truthful to us? And they were just telling us maybe what we needed to hear at the time to keep people calm. So we waited, and we did just that. We kept people calm. We did the best that we could. We tried to keep the faith. We were praying. We were, like, you know, feeling, okay, yeah, they're going to do their job. They're going to do the best that they can, because they assured us, they promised us. They said this, they said that. And yeah, okay, we have to stay calm. We have to stay, you know, we're keeping that hope. So as time went by, we hear, okay, yep, they laid the charges. They laid the charges to this man. And okay, all right. And then we waited and waited and waited. And of course, with how the law works, you know, apparently it's 2 years you have to wait until you get in till they go to court or it happens because they have to do it properly. And once, you know, we find out, okay, the court date, then we find out it's only going to be by judge. And guess what? It's all going to be in French. We don't speak French. So we were wondering, okay, well, what's going to happen? Like, you know, how are we going to understand how are we going to be able to follow along? And of course, we were very upset about this. And then the best thing that they could do, what they told us was, we'll provide an overflow courtroom with video and audio. So we're thinking, okay, all right, well, video and audio we can listen, but it's still going to be in French. Like, do we not get a translator? Like, does it not matter to us for them, you know, that we understand and follow along in these proceedings? And so that was it. So finally, of course, we have friends and family who were asking around, and we did get a couple of translators who were willing and volunteered to come in and sit in the court to help us through it. And it was very, it was really hard. It was really hard because there's no pause button. You can't stop, you can't rewind. So it's going and going, and of course we're gonna miss some parts. But we did get the most out of what we could with our translators that volunteered. And we're grateful for them to come every day. And they didn't have to. With that, the very first week of this trial, the focus was on my son's drinking. We thought that was very odd. Why? Why does it matter if my 22-year-old son is out celebrating on a Saturday with his best friend and wants to go hang out at a party and have fun? He's 22, he's of legal age, he's young, he doesn't have no children, and it's his best friend's birthday. Like, anybody would go out and have fun and celebrate. But this became an issue right from the start, the focus that my son was intoxicated. Why? We all questioned it. The family and our friends and supporters that showed up and was there hearing this, we all were looking at each other like, what is the importance of this? Like, why are they focusing on my son's drinking? Why? So besides, you know, being in an overflow courtroom where, you know, apparently we can talk and be as loud as we want and you know, fine. You know, and, you know, having to struggle and trying to listen and trying to understand what is being said, you know, and then we sat there day after day with that struggle. So when it come time for the last day of the trial, the judge decides to say, for her decision, when it is time for her decision to be rendered, she would like it if she could have a simultaneous translation for the family provided for the family so that they can understand and hear her decision and understand it. Okay. So that was, like, to us, we're like, wow, well, that's really nice of her. Okay. And then I got to thinking about it later on. At the end of this whole thing, she says this. I'm thinking, did she not have the power to do this from the beginning? Is it only in her power to provide this translation at the end? Like, why at the end only? Like, why? That it doesn't, I don't understand that. So then, you know, I think about it, I'm like, okay, wow, okay, why, if she could do it at the end, doesn't she not have the power to do it from the beginning? So that's a question that stays in my mind as well. So, you know, COVID happens and verdict comes out during COVID-19 where, you know, we have to do social distancing and everything is shut down. So we decide, okay, we can do social distancing and be outside the courthouse, like, you know, and oh yeah, that's the other thing. We were not allowed inside of the courthouse during the verdict. I didn't understand why we had to wait outside, but we did. You know, we waited outside. Every step of the way we were there. There was no way I was going to miss a day. I wasn't going to miss anything. We were not. We stood there. That was for our son. And so, you know, and then the verdict is given. And of course, we're devastated. We just were mind blown, like could not understand what was happening, like why. So then after that was given, we find out, you know, and it was in the media as well, that, you know, the judge says to that family inside of the courthouse, you know, I hope you can move on from this tragedy. You know, I hope, you know, you go home and you can move on from this. Like, I was baffled, like, what? Why, you know, she's consoling that family and we get nothing. Like, that really, that was hard. That was really harsh. And then of course, you know, after that and to get back home, and then, you know, you look online and you see, you start seeing posts on social media and you see their family, you know, and they're celebrating on social media. And they put out there on Facebook, public, like open for everybody to see, the hashtag justice for Mo. That's his nickname, the person that was acquitted. And yeah, you know, they want to celebrate. They want to celebrate, you know, and they were mocking my son. They were mocking the justice for Brady. And then there was, of course, you see, you know, all the comments and everything that was put out there on social media. And all of them, yeah, we know it, yeah, congratulations, you know, yay, yay you, we should have a party. Like, wow, okay. And this is, you know, coming from a sober man. Anyway, so now we're sitting here thinking, okay, there's got to be something in this verdict that you know they can appeal. There's got to be something that can be appealed. So we wait because, you know, there's a 30-day time limit for the appeal process, and so we're waiting, hoping and praying again. And we waited that 30 days, and just as, you know, we were planning something, you know, to go to Fredericton and have a demonstration, social distancing, and the day of, they release a, you know, statement saying they're not going to appeal. So we were let down again, and I don't know. So I guess that's where I am now, and sorry, I lost my train of thought. Being here now, invited to speak on this panel and to speak on behalf of our family, what we went through and what we're still going through. You know, I really don't want our story to fade away, and I don't want my son to be forgotten. And whatever I can do to keep moving forward and to help other people, that's what I want to do. Like, I want to help and I want to move on, because I know now, because of that verdict and because there is no appeal, that part of our journey is done. But now it is to focus on everything to come together with all our families and everybody that, you know, that has been affected by these injustices. And I want to stay strong for my son. And I want to work towards making a change happen. That's it.
Thank you so much, Jessica. Thank you for your words and being with us here today. And thank you also to the Levy family for their statement. And I think I just want to pause for a moment and just hold some space for a moment of silence. I'm so grateful to all of the families for participating today. And before we move on, I'd like to open it back up to anyone who's spoken to see if you have any closing words or thoughts.
I was wondering if I could say something I think I forgot to mention in the first instance, and that is one of the areas that definitely needs reform is, the consequences for these officers for what they did. They get to go on suspension with pay, they get to continue working, and for us that's just really bad. And do we need to have some kind of review of that? It seems that oftentimes, if it's a person who actually does the shooting, whether they're police or not, who walk away. But in particular, police are protected by the laws that allow them to continue to work. And if these investigations take a year, then they're working and going free. And that just seems so unfair to the families. And I know that's one of the things that has been bothering Martha Martin a lot, is because of that. So just something else to comment on as we go through the discussions the next couple of days. But, to us, these people did something wrong, and yet they're free to do what they want to do and for a long period of time. And why is that? And then if they do get charged, then who knows if they're going to be convicted. So they protect themselves. And I've heard a lot about the Justice Minister saying, well, not everybody's bad, and we need to keep up the morale. Well, we need to have something like a whistleblower policy, or so that officers can make sure that when they see racist behaviors, that they can report it without consequence to themselves, or that they just speak out and stop those kind of actions with their officers. So as long as they're being silent and not speaking up against their fellow officers, they're being complicit in what's going on. So that was just one issue that I had forgotten to raise. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Did any of the other panelists or co-panelists want to say anything else?
If I may, what I can say is that, the families have been very forward thinking in the kind of change that they want to see occur. Of course, that change doesn't happen overnight, but there are particular intermeasures that have to be undertaken to provide some solace and some safety. And what we've noted is that, these institutions are far too quick to come to the table and make empty promises. And Jessica talked about that. And I think that it's important that we recall that as we move forward in these processes. The investigations, for example, and I'm not only speaking in the New Brunswick context, I'm talking about generally, there's very, very, very little transparency in the context of those investigations. And there is an absolute need for that transparency. I would also add that as far as any kind of initiative that is forward thinking and that aims to address a lot of these issues that are colonial in nature, they're not our problems, they are colonial problems that we are trying to contribute to the dialogue to fix, absolutely have to be Indigenous led. The last thing that is required is for there to be a person who has a very steep learning curve with respect to these issues to sit as commissioner or what have you, to start examining them. We have to remember that independence and objectivity does not mean lack of knowledge. That it's quite the contrary. There needs to be a real depth of knowledge, in my opinion, to approach these issues in any meaningful way. Some of the struggles that have come from, inquiries, which are necessary, is really the lack of ability to force governments to implement those recommendations, calls to action, calls to justice. There are political statements that speak to the desire to do that, but I find it very ironic that more than one politician has expressed concern that, oh gee, this inquiry report will just sit on the shelf when they are the very individual with the power to implement the recommendations, the calls to action, the calls to justice, or however they may be called. And so in the past few years, I've taken to calling those particular recommendations not recommendations, but legal imperatives. If the underlying purpose of Section 35 is to bring about a measure of reconciliation, that we can't talk about these institutions being built upon, good intentions and putting forward really meaningful, thoughtful recommendations and calls to action, and not forcing the state to implement them in a meaningful way. And so I hope that with what will transpire in the following months with respect to the absolute tragedies that have occurred in New Brunswick and in Mi'kma'ki and elsewhere in Nunavut as well, and across the country, that we can really put some force and some kind of legal teeth behind the outcomes of these processes, so that there's no more room to hide. Thank you.
Thank you very much. If anyone else on the panel wants to add anything. Thank you. I want to thank you all very, very much for your words. It's been an honor to bear witness this afternoon as we've listened to you and as we've engaged in this discussion. I'm so heartbroken for all of you and for everything you've experienced, of course. And I want to acknowledge that there are so many families who have also experienced the trauma and the violence of the legal system and the lack of justice for Indigenous people. And your words are sitting with me as a Métis woman, as a lawyer, as an educator of future lawyers. And I am so honored and so grateful to have been able to participate in this today. We're going to close with a song offered up to us by Terry Lynn Williams Davidson. Terry Lynn, I believe I can see you here on the feed now. Are you able to start your video? Oh, excellent, thank you. I'll let you introduce yourself and the song, and then once Terry Lynn concludes, we will come back and I will just conclude the panel and the event and remind everyone about tomorrow's agenda. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. I'm here with Robert Davidson, my husband, and we are sharing the song from the beautiful territory of the Semiahmoo Nation. And we're very honored to share this song for the beautiful words that have been shared today and the work that will be done tomorrow. We have a very hard road as Indigenous peoples in this country and indeed in the world. And it requires, of course, our strength and our sharing from the heart. And this is a song that Robert composed, and it means, the words are to have a light heart on your new journey, because while we do have such a hard road, the Creator tells us that there is joy and there's light amongst us all the time, even in those hard times. And so this is a song that encourages hope, that gives strength. We often sing it to give strength to families who are going through hard times. And it's sung for families who've shared, for the people coming together, for good words for tomorrow, because we'll all on a new path together after this summit. And this song is for that path together, for the families, and for this country, that we will find a way forward.
Thank you so much for that beautiful, beautiful song. Thank you for sharing that with us and for sending us off in such a good way today. I hope that everyone who has been watching is able to take time to be supported in whatever ways they need to be this evening as we move into the rest of the evening, having had these powerful words shared with us and being able to have witnessed the words and the experiences and perspectives that have been shared with us today. I'm incredibly grateful to everyone who participated. Thank you so much to the family members, to Jade and to Jessica, and to Martha, even though she couldn't be here with us. And thank you to Dr. Sayers for being able to be here to speak to the family's situation and perspectives. Thank you very much to Eleanore Sunchild and Dr. Beverly Jacob for your word well, and also to Alisa for being able to be here to add and to introduce Jessica. I am honored been able to facilitate this discussion, and I know that that I will walk away with a heart full of wisdom from the words that I have heard, and with a continued commitment to trying to find a way forward for change and for action to reform the systems that continue to do this violence. Tomorrow's agenda begins at 8:30 a.m. Pacific time. And we have 3 panels tomorrow that will deal with different parts of the justice system, or not justice system, sorry, the legal system and policing, and also to have discussions about the recommendations that have been created as points of action to start the discussion. So again, special thanks, of course, to the family member participants today, Jade Brown-Tootoosis and Jessica Perley. Thank you so much for your incredible, inspiring actions and words as you continue to move through this process. And again, acknowledging all of the other families out there who are dealing with the consequences of the violence of the Canadian state. With that, I will close out this panel and look forward to tomorrow's discussions. Thank you, everyone.